Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is Activities Across Grade Levels, and we are back. 2021. I don't know about you, but having 2020 in the rearview mirror, that's all right. Kind of happy to let that one go behind us. So what we're going to talk about today is self-direction and self-management. All right. So you did that whole thing of like, do kids just have to be spoon-fed every last thing? Do you have to crack the whip all the time? We're going to take these questions on. Already done. Thank you very much. And we thank you for joining us. If you are joining us live, you can toss questions into the chat as we go. If you're watching this as a recording, thank you for doing so. And we hope that you'll find plenty of good stuff in the 32 other episodes we have done of Activities Across Grade Levels. That's 2 to the 5th. Okay, so our little shindig happens on the first and third Thursdays of most months. Matter of fact, the most applies because next month it will be the third Thursday before we meet again. So April the 18th, if you are on my newsletter, then you will get an announcement of that as well. And you will be welcome to sign up for this after you get the email from me after we air this, because I'll send that out and we'll have switched the setup so that you can do the signing up thing. January 30th, a week from Saturday, is the North Bay Q Napa Learns Learning Innovation Summit. And I'm going to keynote it. Woo, woo. So if you're like, oh my God, you, all right. But if you're not in that space, you might be like, hey, cool. It's free. Oh, it's a good price point. Absolutely. So feel free to jump in on that. You can click on the link that is in the slide. And once we give you the slide, matter of fact, I might, Susan, get your help in grabbing that link and getting it out there. Actually, I don't know. There's an easier way to do that. Let me just kind of call this up right here and grab it. And in the chat, and bam, it's there. So feel free to use that to get involved in this cool Q and Napa Learns gig. On Friday, February the 4th, I will be doing a webinar on your school post-COVID. So way back in March of last year, I did one called Switching to Online Learning. And then in June, preparing your team for the fall. And now I'm sort of in the space of, hey, there is going to be a post-COVID world, thank goodness. And your school will not be the same as it was before the pandemic. So we want to talk about that a little bit, how to get prepared, how to think about that constructively, happily. I mean, there's a number of different pieces of that you're very welcome to join in on. Next Vista for Learning is the nonprofit shindig that I run and that makes all of this webinar thing possible. So I hope you will take a look at the online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere. Free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screened content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Thank you very much. We have 2 new contests that have launched like in the last week. Woo! All right, one of them is our Edu Video contest, 90 seconds or less, creatively explain something one might encounter in school. So if you or one of your students can explain something in a way that would make another kid go, oh, and especially if you're having fun with it, you could win fabulous prizes. All right, and then there's the Service via Video 21, the stories of those who make life better for others. We get so many cool videos through that project. We hope you will get involved. Just let us know if you are thinking, I want my kids involved. Happy to help. Thank you goes out to the people at the Krause Center for Innovation, Gay and Justin and Cass and everybody there who helped make the Merit program possible and the upcoming Elite program, exciting stuff. We thank all the good folks at Fowler Unified who allow Susan to be part of this wonderful little every other week thing that we do. We want to thank Richard Byrne of Free Tech for Teachers for helping us let people know about different ways they can do X, Y, and Z, and for all he does with me on the 2 EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff webinar, which we enjoy doing. And I've just posted the new one from earlier this afternoon on the Next Vista webinars page. So with that, we should meet the people that are involved here. Susan, who are you?
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology coach from Central California. And before my role as a technology coach and just all things digital learning right now, I also taught kindergarten and 2nd grade for many years. I'm a mom of 3, and I'm very excited to be here with you and with my friend Rushton today.
and I am Russian, one of Susan's friends, and also a guy who was a high school teacher of Japanese language, became a principal of a K-12 and then an online high school, and then I started Next Vista for Learning. And now I travel all over and help people think about new possibilities for their schools. Now, how's this going to work today? We're going to take our theme, self-direction, self-management, and talk about it from the K2 level, the 3rd to 5th grade, the middle school, and the high school. And we hope there'll be some good ideas in there for you. If you have questions about any of it, just let us know. All right, let's start with the young learners. And Susan, it is in your hands. Talk to us.
Awesome. Well, when it comes to young learners and all things new learning, when it comes to little ones, we start with model, 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 and model, model, model. We got to show learners what that looks like. And sometimes that is even modeling how we think about things. Oh, I noticed this has here. Oh, I noticed this, that thinking about thinking and having students watch us think and also ask questions about the world around us. I wonder what would happen if this. I wonder if I did this, how that worked, and really just modeling what it's like to notice and wonder the world around them. Sometimes kids are just so one-tracked, going to look at what's in front of them, and they don't necessarily, and developmentally, don't see much past the tip of their own nose. So starting early and giving students the ability to just notice the world around them is going to be the beginnings of having them be self-directed and being able to manage themselves, going beyond listening to instructions and doing what they're told. So just giving that modeling of inquiry. What's that? Ooh, what happens here? And then, of course, once we start getting into school, we want to think about ways we might replace traditional activities with something more choice-based. When it comes to in-class activities, if you're doing your small groups or your stations, for a long time, I know kindergarten looked like this. At this table, you do this activity, and at this table, you do this activity, and this table, you do this activity. Ding, 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 ring the bell, let's rotate, right? That's one way that small group instruction has looked in the past. But when we can take that and replace it with something choice-based and put out some things that might be of interest to students, of course, oftentimes we might have those menus of must-dos and may-dos, right? Things you got to get done, and the things that you can explore once you've accomplished that, but really giving students that opportunity to want to explore and want to try other things and not just do what they're told. Beyond that, I want to make sure that we we start talking about the technology and talking about the tools. We want to be able to provide some explicit training. When we're moving to this digital learning space and when we have students working with anything new, being explicit and teaching them how to access the tool or how to use the tools is going to matter, because as much as people might say that our learners right now are digital natives and they just come in knowing how the technology works, that's not necessarily true. So we want to be explicit in how we teach them how to use the tools. Sure, they can sit there and push all the buttons and try to figure things out, but part of giving students choice is making sure that it's not just a free-for-all, right? We don't want to be like, oh, go figure it out. We want to have some direction there, which is kind of modeling that idea of exploration, but also making sure that we set them up to have success. And of course, giving time to let students create and play. We want their brains working. We don't want their brains just following directions, just giving students opportunities to create in the world around them. So some additional things that we might do when it comes to the littlest ones. I have an example here on the screen of how we have shifted homework at our schools. This is actually about 3 years old. This isn't something we just started in light of the pandemic. We shifted all homework to home activities, and they're very much choice-based, which means the student doesn't have to do every single one there. You actually, if you read the instructions, it says pick 4 of these. So they can choose the things that are most interesting to them or the things that work best. We offer those, like, here's some digital options and here's some analog options, and just really having students, even within their homework, have opportunities to choose. So as we continue on to the next page, talking about the littlest ones, we want to make sure that there are some guidelines. When we provide that, those choice-based activities, we also want to make sure that we kind of rein it in and have some of that creative constraint. You don't want it to always be just everybody do whatever you want, but really just making sure you have some guidelines, because if we want students to be able to think through something and be self-directed, we want to make sure that it's not always just like, wow, right? And in digital learning, we do want to make sure that we, in our lessons or whatever activities it is, short snippets of that. We don't want 60 minutes of just go do whatever. We want to make sure there's that revisit, redirect, and just keep students on task, so that they know that there's some accountability in that as well. Making sure that when it comes to self-directed learning, right now, a lot of our self-directed learning comes in the form of asynchronous instruction through, say, Seesaw or Google Classroom. There's things that they're accountable for on their own, and no one is there to tell them, okay, now do this. Okay, now do this. There's structures, maybe we might have some, after we do our whole class instruction, our synchronous online learning, perhaps we might move over to, go work in Google Classroom, the things that are there for you. But there's no one there necessarily to tell them when it's time to switch from activity to activity. So making sure that we have scaffolds in place so that they can be self-directed, especially for our early and non-readers, making sure that when it comes to giving instructions, we use audio instructions, record instructions aloud for them, maybe even video instructions, or even use emoji. You will notice in the examples here on the screen, there's just little emoji pictures to help move kids along so they understand. They may not be able to read the words, but in that Seesaw one example on the bottom there, you can just see with your eyes that it says play the instructions. So the students see the visual cues of what they're supposed to do. So they can be self-directed even if they're early or non-readers here. At the top there, Rushton, there's one you can click on. Will you go ahead and load that one up for us? So this is another example of students being able to be self-directed. So the teacher has done a couple things here, and she's offered a blended learning lesson of sorts. There's some traditional instruction right there with the teacher. She can just speak up, and she teaches a little mini lesson about action words. Will you play just the first couple seconds of that, Rushton, the teacher in the upper right-hand corner? Well, and that's a Jack Hartman video as well. So we send them to YouTube to watch the Jack Hartman video, but look at this, this is the teacher. And she says, hey, boys and girls, I want you to know that today we're learning about action words, right? So she's able to provide that video instruction right there on the screen. So giving students some instruction, right? That's that scaffold, because then the next page of this activity, if the students were to toggle over, they're on their own to do this. They don't have to do it. They don't have anyone, telling them what to do, but she's able to do a little mini lesson and give them instruction on what they're supposed to do so that they could then turn around and do it on their own. They weren't, no one was watching them do, problem after problem. So just some of those little tiny things we could do, video instructions. And then going back to the presentation, we can see there at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a blog, and we'll make sure that this gets to you, from my friend Amanda. And she has just an amazing list here of all the ways that we can make sure that we talk about self-directed learning in K2, from making sure they have badges, as well as those the idea of the audio and visual instructions, designing digital lessons. She's got a lot of ideas here about how to make it hands-on and make it exciting and predictable for the young learners as well, because those are all going to be ways that we can make sure that our youngest learners do have success there. So lots of good content there to talk about self-direction in K2. So moving on up to the slightly older learners, when we're talking about upper elementary kiddos, making sure that there's another layer here. Right now, our kids are a lot of times, either they're learning from home, or maybe they're just starting to come back into this new version of learning that looks very different that they recall from last year. And so we want to make sure that our students are having some strategies to kind of manage not just their educational setting, but also their emotional setting as well, because we know that those things are hand in hand. Students, the whole child idea and social emotional learning in general, there are the levels of making sure that they're self-aware of what's going on around them, but also that they have skills and strategies to manage that. And sometimes that has to do with their stress or their impulse control, but it's also about being disciplined about getting what they need to do done, motivated to go try those things or get their work done, setting their own goals, having the organization. All of this is part of self-management in that idea of social emotional learning. That's one component of it. And we have to equip students with those strategies. So some ideas that we have been using to get our kind of slightly older learners, right? They can do things on their own. They don't have to have their hand held all the time. But on the next page, there's an example of one set of tools that we're using. When you go to Slides Mania, the amazing Paula over there, she has created a ton of resources that have really helped our students be able to do just that when it comes to managing their own work. She has student planners, weekly schedules, digital notebooks where students can take their whatever's been assigned to them, and they're accountable for it themselves. So by having those templates free to use right there at Slidesmania, we can give them some planning tools, some ways to just manage their own things, because we know that clarity is key, right? Gesundheit, Rushton. Students who understand what's expected of them brings the stress down, right? And that's what we want. We want to bring down the stress so they could be their full selves when it comes to learning. If I'm anxious about what am I supposed to do, what do I need to do, having routines and having these predictable structures, such as the student planners or a really predictable weekly schedule, reduces the anxiety. So then our students can be more free to take risks and be fully involved in the learning. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Slidesmania, lots and lots of great stuff, but really giving students student planners to be able to manage themselves in school allows them to kind of free up their cognitive load, right? So they can be involved in learning and be ready to be more self-directed because they have those skills and strategies to manage themselves.
Let's take it to the next grade level, and we get up to middle school. And the thing with middle school is that we're going to be thinking very specifically about choice. This is building off of the same ideas that Susan was putting in front of us with the early years. But when we think about choice, this is the path to buy-in academically. So one of the things that I see a lot of teachers do is they say, oh, okay, well, we have this assignment. And they're very focused on the frame of the assignment. It is a paper, it is a video, things like this. And that's all right. But one of the things that I encourage teachers to do who are beginning to try out more choice in what they do is to provide a default. So maybe you normally assign a one-page paper. All right, assign the one-page paper. The kids know what to do, but let them know. If you'd like to do something different, as long as it shows you've learned these things in the ways that we've talked about, then you can, as long as you get it approved by, and then pick a date, right? So if by Friday you have let me know that you're going to do it in this way and cover the content in this way, and I approve it, then you can do it a different way. So that way, the kid who's like, just tell me what to do. I mean, like they've got the default, they've got the one-page paper and they can do that. And for the kids who need to stick with that, you might have a kid come up and say, well, I want to do interpretive dance for this. And you're like, you need to actually work on your writing. So whatever it might be, just giving room to have something a little different is good for them in terms of trying out some different things, but also means that you won't have to do as many of the same thing, perhaps, as you get into your grading of that. Now, when we talked about the young learners, we talked a little bit about choice boards, and I want to talk about choice from a more less of a visual point of view and more from a sense of there are these different things we ask students to do. So maybe over the course of a week, when you think about homework, instead of there is this homework for this, this many points and this homework for this many points, maybe the job is just to come up with 5 points over the course of a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be, a unit. And there are different ways you can do it. And so it could be, for example, that there is a small kind of time commitment piece that yields 1 point. And then there is something a little more involved that that could earn 2 or 3, or something, kind of even cooler, but has within it something like you must be able to, add this kind of complexity in terms of how. So once we get students into that space of thinking about these different things, they can begin thinking, oh, I think I'll do this at this time and this at this time and this at this time. And ideally, what you end up with is students having pulled together a number of different pieces that can become the basis for future assignments, where you can say, okay, that if you did a video at this point, and you want to pull it into this next piece about how we're going to look at particular issues from opposing views, and look at validity in how people approach those things in that way. And so you're trying to get them farther and farther up the academic maturity ladder as you have them looking at these different pieces. Now I've got a link there in the slide to a wonderful blog post from AJ Giuliani about, I think he called it the ultimate guide to choice boards or something like that. So a good resource for those of you getting into it. And then there's high school. So with high school, I decided, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this in a particular way. First, Everything we talked about with middle school can apply to high school, right? So you can use all of those same techniques, those same frameworks for how you get people doing different things. But maybe you say, I really want to just start the year early to be thinking about it, perhaps, maybe not. I want to start the year by having them do something that puts them in more of a mode of directing their own learning. And so what I've put together for you is a little self-direction 101. Now you could build this however you want. I have day 1 through 4 on this, but day is just a stand-in for any particular time period. You use this however you will. If you want to connect with me and talk about ways to flesh out some of these pieces, you're welcome to do so. Day 1. All right. So this is the point where you're trying to get them to unlearn a certain compliance approach to what they do. So where you put a few things in front of them and you say, all right, so you've got this amount of time, do something interesting with it, we'll come back. What? No, I can't handle that too much. You're actually starting it with the perspective that you want them to have that cognitive dissonance of, but you haven't told me what to do. You want them in that space where they're having to try to figure out, well, what does that mean, right? What does it mean to talk about, this or that other thing? And, start by putting some awfully cool stuff in front of them. I put a link to a video called Land of Skate. And what it is, it's about the story of Skatistan, which is a really interesting program dedicated to helping kids and especially girls in Afghanistan learn to develop confidence and academic potential through skateboarding. It's a really, really cool video. It runs about 13 minutes, right? But beautiful. So it's a really, really good thing just to watch, period. But the idea is to start getting them to look at different things and say, connect that with something else. Connect that with something in your life. What is something that you're into that represent a connection on that? Then in the second phase of this, we want to move them into presenting about these ideas. So how do you present about things in a cool way? Well, don't tell them how to do it. Have them start trying things out and then talk to each other. What is it that you're doing? How does this work? What is it we're trying to make happen? And then as they begin to do it, you might have them get into the space of really talking about, okay, if I'm trying to take this to the next level, I would do this. I tried taking this to the next level in this way. So they're talking about how they take their ideas and do something more interesting. So you can explicitly talk about the idea of compliance. If all we do all year is I give you homework and then threaten you with bad grades if you don't do it, is that going to be fun for all of us? Right? Maybe not. And instead, if they're into a space where they're like, what if I take something to the next level? What might that look like? Now, in day 3, the idea is to start getting kids together and initially maybe do this in quads. So you get 4, right? But it's really 2 pairs. And their job is to take the 2 things that they've come up with, or one of the interesting things they have done in the earlier days, and pull that and then take that with the partner and say, here's mine. The other person says, here's mine. Say, all right, how would we combine that in a story? How would we pull those 2 pieces together? Now, these things may have nothing to do with each other, right? And so they have to get quite creative about how that might look. And so by talking with each other through that process, they can begin seeing that more creative responses to their work is going to make this just a much easier, year to have for everybody, like especially you, the teacher. And then we want to, to finally get them into, into a sense of this is how this might look in terms of assignments. Now, clearly, if you do all these kinds of things and then you just kind of give them do this in this way, blah, 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 not good. So make sure you are bought into the idea as you go as well. All right. If you have got questions, feel free to throw them into the chat or email them to us. If you are watching this as a recording, we are very happy to take a look at the different pieces that you've got there. There's a contact page for that kind of thing, and we're happy to look at it. As we wind down, let me say that our goal is always to remind you that caring for yourself is a really big deal in terms of you're having the energy and creativity to do the things that a kid who needs to hit that next point, may need to hear, may need to do, so that you are there for your kids. If you're finding yourself, feeling down, just find those things that work for you as well. Whether it's a little bit of exercise, whether it's getting into a book that you haven't gotten into, whatever it may be, just self-care, big deal. All right, now, we hope you'll sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter is an opportunity to get all kinds of things you might want to watch or read or try. I've gathered them for you, announcements about our contests, things like that. So it comes out once a month, and I'll also let you know about different things that we're doing with these webinars as we do that as well. And you could even win a Starbucks card as a function of doing that. Not a bad thing. All right. Now, I have a blog, and the blog includes the most recent post, which is about that your school post-COVID bit. And so if you want to get a bit of a preview on that material, feel free to give that a look. And I have written some books that I hope you will take a look at. As you come back to the slides, there's plenty there that might inspire you to see your own work or your work with your colleagues in new ways. All right, we hope that you will take an interest in our other webinar, the other regular webinar that we do with Next Vista, which is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff, and send your questions. We're happy to talk to you about tech or how you approach learning or anything like that. So with that, feel free to start thinking about questions you might have, and know that this is your team. Susan, how do people stay in touch with you if they want to do so?
Oh, you can find me on the internet at Twitter under the hashtag TechCoachSusan, because I'm Susan and I'm a tech coach and not super creative in my names. Also, you can search the hashtag K2Can2, and there you'll find lots of teachers like my friend Amanda, constantly sharing the things they do in their classroom, the creative ways that we can empower our littlest learners to get involved in their learning. So search K2Can2 and find lots of great things that teachers everywhere are doing with their youngest learners.
My name is Rushton Hurley. I run Next Vista for Learning. Nextvista.org is the video library I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, and we hope you will give that a look. But our main thing is to just make sure that we are giving you ideas that might excite you about what you can accomplish with your students. We do this every 2 to 4 weeks, and we will be excited to bring the next one to you, which will have the theme tricking kids into learning. So we hope to see you then.